the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at the 2020 version of The Invisible Man. This modern take on H.G. Wells' story that was written 12 decades ago beautifully adapts the material into the digital age. That's no surprise, given that it was written and directed by Whannell, who not only created Saw and Insidious with his buddy James Wan, but who made his directorial debut with the amazing techno horror Upgrade.
Yeah, I'm Lee. If you don't already know that, that's probably a bad sign.
The Invisible Man is his second film as a director, and it's just as sleek and horrifically cold as Upgrade, showing that the dude has already mastered his own sense of style. With The Invisible Man, Whannell distills our current reality of techno-corporate dominance into a suspenseful horror movie about gaslighting and abuse. It's one of the best marriages of themes and style I've ever seen, with the invisible capabilities of the antagonist feeding into and representing the conditioned paranoia of the protagonist, who's played by one of my favorite actors of our generation, Elizabeth Moss, previously seen on The Kill Count in Jordan Peele's Us. If you're looking for a great horror movie made this year, I highly recommend you watch this one on your own, especially because so many scenes rely on expertly crafted suspense that won't come across as well in a kill count. In the 1930s, The Invisible Man killed over 100 people. How many will this modern makeover murder? Let's see! Wait a minute. The movie begins with a very clever title card. Best shake off all that water now, title card. There you go, invisible again. In this gorgeous cliffside home, Cecilia Cass is awake at the witching hour so she can quietly sneak away from her partner Adrian Griffin, who should be sleeping soundly thanks to some diazepam she slipped in. This opening sequence is one of the best I've seen in a horror movie since Scream, which is meant as the highest compliment. Even though we don't yet know the details of this relationship, Elizabeth Moss's performance and the care with which she takes her every movement lets us know she's terrified of possibly waking Adrian up. She grabs a getaway bag from inside a closet cubbyhole before heading downstairs to Iron Man's workshop. No time to stop and look at that spray tan station, Cece. You've got to get out of here without making any noise. Ah, shit, you made noise! More noise is made when a good boy booty bumps a car alarm on, and as Cece makes it to the outer wall of the property, a bedroom light flicks on behind her. She traverses the acres of this house's isolation until she reaches a road where she, but not her diazepam, gets into a car driven by her sister Emily, picked up just in the nick of time.
Go.
Adrian's able to punch through the window and grab at Cecilia before Emily drives away. He's left lonely and pissed with nothing to hold on to of Cecilia's besides her diazepam. 2 weeks later, Cece is staying with her friend James Lanier, a San Francisco police detective played by Aldous Hodge. C is still so traumatized by her near escape from Adrian that she's barely able to walk as far as the mailbox, so it's a good thing she has such a supportive friend in James.
That's the furthest you've gone since you've been here, okay? So as far as I'm concerned, you just walked on the moon.
She was an astronaut. Cece's taking every step possible to keep herself hidden from Adrian, but all these efforts may be unnecessary after her sister Emily shows up with the latest news. Adrian is dead from an apparent suicide. It's a total shock to Cece, especially since Adrian was always so controlling, not just in his life, but hers as well, dictating everything from her outfits to her diet. She also implies that he would hit and sexually abuse her, and that he tried to put a baby in her as a way to keep them connected forever. Thankfully, she was able to avoid a pregnancy by secretly taking birth control. With Adrian 6 feet under now, Cece can get the mail with ease, impressing James and his daughter Sydney, who hopes to get into Parsons Fashion School after she graduates this year. Cecilia gets a summons to head into the city and meet with Adrian's brother Tom Griffin, who also acts as the attorney of Adrian's estate. He begins to read Adrian's will, which only serves to manipulate Cece, even from beyond the urn of his ashes.
Although our relationship was far from perfect, I at least thought we had built up enough trust that you would talk to me rather than running away from what you perceived us to have.
Sorry, you're not allowed to do that.
Well, is he allowed to give Cece $5 million? Because that's what Tom's supposed to do, according to Adrian's will. Whole lot of moolah there, all for the low cost of one Hancock. Cecilia takes the money and uses it to buy James a new ladder and Sydney a ladder to success, since she's going to use it to fund a Parsons tuition.
You're going to fashion school, kid.
It's a really sweet scene that goes a long way towards making you care about these characters. All three actors, including then 16-year-old Storm Reed, do a great job being realistically goofy and compassionate towards each other. And that makes it all the more unnerving when we get this creepy distant shot from down the hallway, implying that they're already being watched by someone they can't see. This movie really is a masterpiece in paranoid filmmaking. With its long searching shots of empty space, it makes the viewer constantly vigilant for some evidence of the Invisible Man's presence. It's a very active viewing experience that also recreates Cece's feelings of paranoia. But mere paranoia can't be blamed for what happens to her breakfast skillet the next morning.
Sid, come on, girl. You're gonna be late.
The bacon burns and goes straight up in flames, but Sydney saves the day with a fire extinguisher, so no damage done, you know, for now. That night, a home alone Cece finds the front door mysteriously open, and though she doesn't see anyone outside, if she had been a bit more attentive, she might have noticed the foggy breath being exhaled right next to her. Later, while she's sleeping, her covers are removed and some camera flashes go off, briefly lighting up the room and causing her to wake up. Who could have done that, Cece? Don't worry about that guy, see? He's just an homage to the OG film. I love that it's motivated too. There would be a dress stand in there since Sydney wants to go to fashion school. We get another reference to the Claude Rains film when Cece sees a butt print in the cushion of this chair. But again, it's only a reference. Ain't no invisible butts there. Though there is something keeping her from pulling the sheet back to her bed. Or rather, someone. And they're coming around for her.
James!
What? What's wrong? Oh, sorry. Unsurprisingly, there's nothing Cece can point to as evidence by time James and his massive triceps get to the room.
Adrian will haunt you if you let him. Don't let him.
You got it, dude. You can get back to your dips now. Cece has a job interview the next day at an architectural firm with a painfully tech startup logo. The interviewer is played by Benedict Hardy, who was that nasty fucker Fisk in Upgrade, but he's barely through flirting with her when she discovers that her work samples are missing from her binder. Even worse, she passes out during the interview. That tends not to get you the job. It does get you a trip to the hospital though, where more nods to the original film can be found. I think Whannell perfectly balanced making this film his own while paying respect to the classic. It's good stuff. The hospital calls her later and says that she probably fainted because of all the diazepam in her system. But Cecilia says she hasn't taken her diazepam since she ran away from Adrian. Hell, she doesn't even have it anymore after dropping it outside his house that night. Oh my god! Cece goes to Tom and asks him to tell Adrian to stop messing with her. She thinks he's still alive somehow, since he once told her he would do this kind of shit if she ever left him.
That he would walk right up to me, and I wouldn't be able to see him, but that he would leave me a sign so that I'd know he was there.
That sign, her diazepam, is proof to her that Adrian's not dead. He must have scienced a way to be unseen.
He has figured out a way to be invisible.
Tom commiserates with her, saying that Adrian also used to abuse and manipulate him, but he doesn't believe her claim that his brother is still alive, not with the pictures he's got in that envelope. Cecilia begins to find herself cut off from the loved ones in her life. Her sister won't talk to her after getting a nasty email that morning, and sure enough, Cece finds a message in her outbox, supposedly written by her, telling Emily she doesn't like her and that she wishes she were dead. Meanwhile, Sydney is turned against Cece in a much more physical way.
Oh my god. Sydney, are you okay? Would you just stop? Stop, Dad!
I find it kind of hard to believe that Sydney would blame C for that when she was clearly too far away to hit her, but I guess it's the most reasonable explanation for the girl to come to. James believes his daughter, so together they step out, leaving Cece all alone with her invisible tormentor.
Where are you? Come on!
What are you waiting for? She tries to reveal his tracks with coffee grounds. Good thing they don't buy whole bean. But when he doesn't show himself, she decides to give his cell phone a call. She hears it vibrating from the attic, so she goes up there and tracks it down, finding some very disturbing pictures on it of her sleeping the other night. After discovering where her missing work samples went, she sees a text on the phone saying, "Surprise." Then hears something coming from over by the attic ladder. Doesn't look like anything's there, see? But how can you know for sure? Oh shit, Peep and Paint Man! Cecilia hops down and arms herself, then follows the paint trail to the kitchen, where it looks like this Invisiboy has washed himself off in the sink. Fully invisible again, he physically attacks Cecilia in a fight scene reminiscent of those in Upgrade. It's a sign of how well done this fight is that you can tell exactly what's happening even though one of the participants is invisible. Elizabeth Moss called this sequence the most physically challenging of the film since it involved stunt wires and fighting a dude in a green screen suit. It was also quite the acting challenge. Because they were using a motion-controlled robotic camera to get all the cool Upgrade-like shots, she had to act while hitting specific beats that were counted out loud like it was marching band.
And 12, and 13, and 14, and...
You have to listen to the count while you're acting, which is a Herculean feat of multitasking that I could not achieve. But she just pulls it off.
Also, I love that Moss acknowledges how crucial the stunt performers were here.
They wanted me to do as much of it as possible, although I had incredible assistance from my stunt double, Sarah. I had an incredible stunt team here.
Hell yeah, she did. Look how Sarah flew. Cece eventually gets away and runs down the street until she's able to be picked up by an Uber driver. Or maybe a Lyft driver? Most of them do both, I think. Safe for the time being, she has the driver take her back to Adrian's estate outside the city. The exterior of Adrian's ultra-modern mansion was built and filmed in Gerringong in New South Wales, Australia. The Invisible Man is a co-production of the US and Australia, with most of it shot in Sydney, even though it takes place in the Bay Area.
I want everyone who's watching this movie to think that we're in the US, but we're not.
Damn it, Lee, why'd you spill your beans? She finds the house empty, maybe, except for memories of past trauma and one handsome, friendly good boy. Hoping to figure out what the hell is going on, she goes to that rack in the lab that looks like a plastic toy was punched out from it. A beep boop on a tablet reveals a high-tech suit that grants its wearer invisibility. It's covered in little cameras that not only trigger trypophobia, but also, I think, project the image from the cameras on the opposite side of the suit, meaning they're transmitting and playing footage of their surroundings at all times, thus rendering the invisible effect. Whannell researched military tech for camouflage to see how invisibility could be achieved realistically.
I didn't want anybody drinking a potion and then just disappearing. I wanted it to be something that was grounded in reality.
Guess he wasn't a fan of Jack Griffin's techniques from the original film.
A few chemicals mixed together, that's all.
The dog begins to bark, signaling that Cece may not be alone anymore, but instead of trying to get out of there with the evidence, she hides the Invisi-suit in her secret getaway closet cubby. I guess she figures the Invisible Man could have taken it from her, since he is in fact here now, throwing her to the floor, but she's able to get away again, so I really feel like she should have taken the suit with her. Cece goes to a restaurant and meets with Emily, hoping she can convince her that this whole invisible abuser thing is really happening. She tells Emily that she has evidence stowed away, and between that and some sisterly love, Emily begins to believe Cecilia. Now, if only she could maintain eye contact. Pay attention, Emily! What are you looking at over there?
What?
Oh, fuck! Okay. Emily drops dead on the table in a horrific and sudden kill that leaves Cece looking guilty of murder and a poopy pants crying face. She's arrested and taken to a facility where her rantings at the invisible aggressor don't do her any favors in terms of looking sane.
I see you! I see you!
Talking to an invisible man? That's a needling. She's locked in a cell, and as the drugs begin to take hold, she hears some auditory proof of Adrian's presence.
Surprise.
Cece is damned by security footage and a threatening email from her in Emily's inbox, and as much as she'd like to tell James about the Invisi-suit she found, she can't risk showing her hand when this room hasn't been properly land-fished.
I can't tell you right now. He's listening.
Yeah, that's gonna be a hard sell, see? And things aren't about to get easier for her either, because a blood test reveals a further complication.
Did you know that you were pregnant?
That's a lot for C to have on her mind as she meets with Tom, who comes to visit her. He tells her that because of her sororicide, she's forfeited the money from Adrian's will, which also means Sydney about to lose her tuition funds. Damn, Tom, you a bastard. Tell him how much of a bastard he is, C.
You're just the jellyfish version of him. Everything but the spine.
The nasty Nidarian smiles as he tells her that she does have an option available to her, one that'll let her keep the money and get out of jail free.
Agree to have the baby. And go back to him.
With that, Tom tells C that Adrian is still alive, and that before she left him, he figured out she was taking birth control and swapped it out for placebos. Now Adrian wants that baby in her belly, and he wants Cece too, because he needs to have control over everything. C denies the terms though, and steals herself a pen that she can use to draw out Adrian. That night in her cell, Cece retrieves the hidden pen, and after telling Adrian he's not allowed to have her or the baby, she stabs herself in the wrist. Oh shit! Somebody stop her!
There you are.
There he is indeed. Man, I love how the suit flickers in and out as Cece stabs at it. A guard comes in to see what's all this and finds a flickering ocular venom standing in the corner. Just a heads up, we're about to see a lot of guards get beat up in this scene, but I think that most of their injuries would be non-fatal. And don't argue, it doesn't matter. I'll count this first guard as killed since Adrian puts that shaki baton up against his neck for a good long while. I know those are supposed to be non-lethal, but you know, that was some lengthy tasing. Cece tries to run away, but is stopped by a couple more guards. But since they just get chopped in the neck and or thrown against the wall, I'm not gonna count them as dead. Another trio of guards shows up, and Adrian non-lethally subdues them as well. With a torso hit, a head slammed into a window, followed by some fun motion tracking camera work, and finally a stolen gunshot to the knee, with a follow-up hit to the head. Easy peasy when you can't seize me. Two more guys show up, and while the first dude just gets knocked to the ground, Adrian messes with the second for a mo. Bang! Before casually shooting him from behind as he walks away. And that one, I finally will count. After all that, Cece finally grabs a gun from a fallen guard and runs after the flickering Adrian, even getting a shot off at him in the stairwell. She uses the weapon to escape the facility and chases Adrian out into the rain, where she stalks him in the parking lot like some kind of drenched kitty. When he finally appears, he chokeslams her against an ambulance and says that because she fought back against him, now he's gonna go murder Sydney. You know, just to teach her a lesson. He incapacitates one more guard and walks away without killing him, leaving yet another eyewitness to this Invisibastard's existence. Cecilia watches as Adrian drives away, and on his way out, he causes another car to crash. Cece takes the opportunity to grab herself them wheels and drives away from its concussed driver and some Billy the Puppet graffiti on the wall. She calls James and tells him that Sydney's in danger, and she ain't lying. The back door at his house just opened, and that wasn't caused by no wind. Sydney wakes up and, sensing that she's not alone, sprays some mace that finds its target and reveals an invisible presence. She tries to run away, but is stopped in the hallway. But thankfully, Papa James arrives to save her, or to get hit in the face. The Invisi beatdown against James is one of the more brutal ones I've ever seen, or haven't seen. Really disturbing to witness, both for us the audience and for poor Sydney there. James is nearly beaten to death before Cece runs in, acting like an Attitude-era hardcore wrestler. A Crash Holly, if you will. With her target in sight, mostly, she opens fire and shoots him 4 times in the chest. And since that suit ain't bulletproof, the Invisivillain falls to the floor. Only thing is, when Cece unmasks him, it's revealed to be Adrian's brother, Tom. Well, that makes things mighty interesting, doesn't it? A raid is conducted at Adrian Griffin's home, and behind a wall in the basement, they find the ocular tech magnate tied up in apparent captivity. James tells Cecilia that Tom was the invisible man all along, and that Adrian was a fellow victim. But she ain't buying that ish one bit. She maintains that Adrian was behind everything, and that now he's just playing the victim.
This is what he does. And he's doing it again.
Eventually, Cecilia calls Adrian and agrees to go to his house. I'm really glad we get a proper scene with a fully visible Oliver Jackson Cohen. Not only is the dude astoundingly handsome, he also gave an incredible performance in Mike Flanagan's Haunting of Hill House series. Also, for some reason, it's really funny to see him in a green screen suit and behind the scenes footage. Adrian welcomes Cecilia inside, where he's got some dinner waiting for. Surf and turf.
We have sushi, steak, and pasta.
And pasta, I guess, as a cheap add-on. They sit down in sight of a security cam, and Adrian gives her an apology for how he abused her during their relationship. Cece says that the only way she'll let him be a part of the baby's life is if he admits to having been the Invisible Man. But Adrian sticks to his guns and swears up and down that he's a mere Shaggy in all of this.
It wasn't me.
His tact is probably because he's smart enough to suspect that Cece might be wearing a wire, which she is, hoping that James will catch his confession. But Adrian never admits anything, at least not openly and outright.
I know you better than anyone else in the world. I mean, that shouldn't come as a surprise.
You son of a bitch. With that callback to the text he sent her in the attic, and the time he said it to her in the hospital,
surprise,
Cece has her own personal confirmation, so she excuses herself to the bathroom, ready to enact some revenge. Adrian patiently waits for her to return, but when she does, he doesn't see her, and she invisibly does to him what he did to her sister in the restaurant. To the security cam though, it just looks like a brutal suicide. Cece covers her tracks via sound as well, making a loud crying re-entrance when she visibly returns to Adrian bleeding out on the floor. She screams and calls 911, begging someone to come and help him as she cleverly walks out of the security cam's range. Once she's unseen, she drops the act and coldly stares at Adrian as he bleeds to death on the floor. What can I say, motherfucker? You deserve this!
Surprise.
Fuck yeah, girl. Fuck yeah. I love that Whannell went with practical effects for this throat slit, but of course he did. He's a veteran at this genre.
Snapped limbs, scalped people, ripped teeth out, hacked legs off at the ankle. But this is special. Something classier about this.
James runs towards the house in a panic, but Cece tells him she's okay. Adrian killed himself, and that's that. Just don't mind the Invisi-suit in her bag. In case you're a little confused, there were two suits the whole time. She hid the one she found in the lab inside her closet cubby and retrieved it when she excused herself to the bathroom during dinner just now. She used it to kill Adrian, and now she's taken it home with her as a souvenir. The movie ends with James agreeing to support Cece's version of the story and Cecilia Cass walking away like a goddamn boss. How many people got killed by an invisible, abusive tech billionaire? Let's find out and... oh, whoa, what?
Surprise.
Aw, thank you! Late housewarming gift, I guess. Hey, come on, bring it this way. Since I decided against counting all those guards as kills, only 5 people died in The Invisible Man, 4 dudes and 1 lady. Still feeling conflicted about whether or not I should have counted those guards. Oh well, with a runtime of 124 minutes, that left us with a kill on average every 24.8 minutes. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to Adrian Griffin. Both throat slits in this movie were abrupt and very memorable, but his beats out Emily's by being a little more bloody and a lot more satisfying. Eat shit, guy! Dull machete for lamest kill will go to the guard shot off screen. Kind of a given there. And that's it. The Invisible Man remake came out in 2020, and there's some talk of a sequel in the works, but you never really know until production has started. Until next time, I'm James A. Janice. This has been The Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching this kill count. I want to thank some patrons like Smokey Ace, Kevin Phillips, Carolyn Shepard, Matthew J. Wilson, Juliana, and Jessica Blue. Hope y'all are enjoying the October kill count release schedule. It's pretty fucking hard, not gonna lie, but it's spooky month. I gotsta. Plus, I have a mortgage to pay now. Thanks everyone, be good people.